There's a term, religious naturalism, I've come across recently in a book by Ursula Goodenough. I can't remember the title actually, I'll find it later. I'm trying to really understand what that term might mean. I'm reminded of the origins of the term religion, and I'm looking for that origin as a kind of explanatory framework. From my understanding, religion comes from a set of terms which together mean to bind together again. Religare, meaning to bind, from the same root I think that we get to words like ligature from, which means a binding, and of course meaning again. So if religion is to bind together again, what seems to be suggested there is a kind of possibly innate, maybe culturally learned, or maybe inevitable embodied realization that that our experience feels kind of broken, or feels kind of divided in some way. We seem to have, as part of our sort of cognitive imperative, a desire to put things together. That seems to be our trick, one of our main desires, to bind things together, to put things together in some way. And if we do feel as if we are entering somehow a kind of broken world, which doesn't necessarily mean damage, it just possibly just means non-comprehensible in a singular way, then it would seem relatively logical from that we would construct means to effect a mending of that break, a closing of those gaps, and an embracing of the fragments of our broken and at least dual, possibly multivalent experience. And that's maybe, I guess, the origins of the religious impulse, the impulse to bind together again, to repair the things that have been broken. It's a term that Walter Benjamin uses, which crops up in a Laurie Anderson song, interestingly enough. In Walter Benjamin's writing, he talks about the angel of history as, he's really talking about progress, but he talks about the angel of history being blown backwards into the future. An explosion has happened in paradise, and the explosion has, the force of the blast has caught the angel under its wings, and the angel is being blown backwards into the future. This is the image that Walter Benjamin constructs. And all around the angel's feet are the shards and fragments of an exploded world. All these are collecting in the wake of the angel as the angel passes backwards. And the angel would like to go back and fix things, but this storm beneath the wings are constantly blowing the angel away from that any possibility of retrieval of those parts, any possibility of binding them again into their original unitary, holistic state. So that's the image that we've had from Benjamin, and that seems to accord, I think, generally with the etymological roots of the word religion, at least. I'm also reminded, in a really different context, of the masthead statement that was on one of the publications, one of the journals, that Aleister Crowley used to put together. Aleister Crowley, English mystic, member of the Ordo Templi Orientis, Order of the Silver Star, widely around his time to be the most evil man in England, and just over 100 years ago he was writing. And the masthead on his journal, if I remember it right, he said something like, "We put no reliance on virgin or pigeon, our method is science, our aim is religion." Which seems to me a sort of first, well, not quite first actually, but it seems to me quite an early, English at least, attempt to to suggest a kind of religious naturalism. The methods of science, which one assumes are empirical, evidence-based, deductive, using all the tools of science, even the ones that aren't directly apprehensible to the senses, like mathematics and so on, calculus. But the aim being to bind together the shards of this broken world. But the fact that he chose the word religion rather than some sort of grand unification theory or just, pursuit of knowledge, also suggests that Crowley was aiming at, a sort of way of being, really, a religious frame of mind, as well as simply a methodological point of completion. So I think there we do have this sense that there is that religious naturalism is an attempt to bind together, to get the big picture, to unify what is separate, to close the gaps between anything that can be closed, subject, object, life, death, any opposites might be unified in that binding. And also there the suggestion that with that binding comes a certain sort of mindset, a certain felt sense of that we usually associate with formal religious practices.